We're on the march. The empire's on the run. Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
A very wealthy U.S. citizen is predicting that in 2011, we will witness the most important day in America in more than 50 years. He says it will change everything about our lives. The way you shop, travel, invest, educate your children, and even how you take care of your health and your own family. Now, this man has made some outrageous predictions over the years. The crazy part is, he's usually right. You see, he predicted the collapse of GM, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and America's biggest mall owner, General Growth Properties. In fact, Barron's called his work a dire prophecy. Recently, he created a video, which you can watch online for free, detailing his biggest and most important prediction yet. And it's a real eye-opener. I can't stress this enough. You should at least watch this free video online today. He explains everything you need to know, including simple steps you can take to protect yourself. You can find the video at www.endofamerica3.com. That's endofamerica, the number 3.com. Watch the free video at www.endofamerica3.com. That's endofamerica3.com. This is Alex Jones with 5 good reasons you should consider buying a solar power generator. Number 1, new climate legislation could easily double or triple your electric bill. Number 2, our new energy czar wants to control how much power your electric company allows you to have. It's true. Total government control of electricity in the name of smart grid technology is coming. Number 3, in some areas of the country, the power grid is dangerously overloaded. And now, new socialist legislation is only compounding the problem. Number 4, dangerous weather is always a threat to local grids. Every year, thousands of families lose their power from weather-related outages. Number 5, a solar power generator provides powerful backup insurance and peace of mind. Folks, I really believe in the solar power generators offered by Solutions from Science, one of my oldest sponsors. You can get more information at www.mysolarbackup.com. That's mysolarbackup.com. Remember, the government doesn't own the sun, so go to mysolarbackup.com or call 1-877-327-0365. Hundreds of nations have fallen to tyranny in the last century alone. This is our last chance to not relive history.
As we're finishing off this agenda, they'll be pulling the rug from underneath Americans at home.
I have tremendous influence on our president and Congress, and they really are calling the shots.
I think it's incumbent upon all of us as American citizens to pay attention.
Fall of the Republic identifies the enemies of our nation, the criminal offshore cartel, hell-bent on destroying sovereignty, and on its ashes constructing world government.
Tim Geithner, Bernanke, they're arsonists. They're asking for more matches. And the Congress is saying, who do we make the check out to?
Today, seems like nobody does care. And right now in Washington, D.C., we have seen a fall of the Republic.
Get your copy of Fall of the Republic on DVD at Infowars.com or watch it online right now in super high quality at prisonplanet.tv.
Gentlemen, we have called you together to inform you that we are going to overthrow the United States government. You still think that jet fuel brought down the World Trade Center? Does anybody else see a problem here? If the government has nothing to hide, why are they so afraid to answer a few questions? This story does not add up.
I'm on a mission to never forget 3,000 people that I've never met. We want the matches and all that we get. Some kind of shit about a terrorist threat.
We are back live. That is Al from Ministry. By the way, he's going to be on the show sometime next week. Lies, 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 lies. By the way, if you listen to that piece, he says, gentlemen, we're on a mission to overthrow the U.S. government. That's the globalists talking there. How do they overthrow the government? They stage an attack against the Republic, and then they say, get rid of the Bill of Rights, Constitution, Declaration of Independence, replace it with a Stasi control grid, let the foreign banks run everything, and you'll be safe from the terrorist. You can see Hitler. Gentlemen, let's completely overthrow the Weimar Republic. Firebomb the Reichstag. Gentlemen, let's start World War II. Attack our own military base at Gleiwitz. Blame Poland. Lies, 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 lies! That is what is going on, my friends. A new world order, as George Herbert Walker Bush talked about. Now, I want to continue to go through the news here and get back to our top story that's really expanded. The DHS has denied racial overtones in white middle-class terrorist video. And, you know, I tell this story, just to give an example of the power of this radio broadcast, the power of our websites, Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. And at the end of the day, the power of this audience. You are the engine. Sure, we do a lot of the research. You help us. We write the articles. We cut through the propaganda. We illustrate with historical context our points, and it has a huge effect. Every week or two now, we put out stories that end up being either the top story in the country or the top story in a area, a top story that then becomes an entire movement. And obviously, we were able to do that some in the past. Drudge Report carrying our material has turbocharged that. But I know a lot of you are radio listeners. You're talk radio listeners. That's why you listen. So you must be hearing this, too. I got up a little late this morning, 7 a.m. Kids and my wife were already up, went in, drank some coffee, had a little breakfast, and started scanning through the local AM dial. Heard the local morning show on 590 talking about the story and plugging Infowars.com. I then, this morning, was driving into work and listened to the same station and heard the next show talking about it. And I thought, let me just tune into a Dallas talk station. Tuned over, boom, talking about it. Didn't have time, was making some cell phone calls to listen to other stations. That, ladies and gentlemen, is having an effect. And Infowars.com with DrudgeReport.com and this audience, that synergy together is absolutely dynamic. Plus, the news is incredible. And it is a great responsibility. You know, I've got Watson writing an article, and even the Texas Power Commission and others agreed with us in our analysis. The White House responded earlier in the year during the rolling blackouts in Texas and other states from the cold weather because we don't have the power plants we need for the growing population. And we have the studies showing that EPA carbon tax policies that have already been in place for 10 years, the increasing policies put in by Obama in the last two were triggering that. And the White House responded to us, the White House Communications Director at whitehouse.gov. And it's the same thing with the rolling heat and the blackouts. And Enron got caught doing this in California in 99, 2000, 2001, because they can then charge you more for less energy. It's part of training you under austerity to pay more for less, okay? And that's their model. So I'm going to be getting into that as well. But that's another big report we need to get out. I'm going to continue to go over the news because I haven't scratched the surface yet of the news. And I want to get into some inflation news as well. There's an article by Big Gold, Jeff Clark, that we've got linked and posted at Infowars.com that shows better than I have. Sometimes I'll come in with a few Zimbabwe notes or old Deutsche marks and say, you know, here's $1 billion mark. This could only buy a loaf of bread at the end, or here's a Zimbabwe $1 trillion note. But they show just, I don't know, it's got to be 15 or so different currencies in the last 100 years that have been completely devalued down to nothing. And we know that's where this is going. I mean, listen, we are informed politically and do make a lot of really complex, incredible calls on what's going to happen. I mean, some of this is really nuanced and has so much information integrated into decisions I make and calls that I make on issues that I don't even know how I completely come to the realization of it. There's so much information integrated that it takes hours of just sitting there in a chair with a pad of paper going over the points in my mind to understand how I know this stuff. I mean, it's like somebody who's been driving a race car, you know, a NASCAR for 20 years. You know, it's just absolutely second nature, and they can't tell you how they do it. I mean, you know, but things like knowing that they are going to hyperinflate the currency down to nothing, that is an absolute foregone conclusion now. The question is the time frame. And when you talk about the devastation economically, financially, socially, the crime, the hellishness of what the private central banks have maneuvered us into. You see, the dollar lost 97%, according to the Congressional Budget Office, of its value from 1913 with the Federal Reserve. Did you know from the 1790s right through until 1913, this country had negative inflation? Sometimes it was a little inflation, or then it was stagnant, or then they would have deflation, but it was basically about a half a point negative. So a dollar in 1820 was worth about the same as a dollar because it was gold and silver backed in 1920, 100 years later. Okay? Now, since 1913, with the Federal Reserve taking over, they've now taken over all of society through fraud, and now they want to destroy what's left of society so they can consolidate it. They've taken over all the major institutions, bought it all up, unlimited money that we then pay interest on to give them. Here's trillions. Now we also pay you interest to give you trillions. We're your slaves. It's total fraud. You just got to say, I'm not a slave anymore. I see your fraud. It's over, Bernanke. You can tell me your fiat notes, debt-based monetary system is good and is money and gold isn't. That's like telling me that, a bucket of vomit is good to drink, but crystal clear mountain spring water isn't. Okay, well, I'm going to drink the mountain spring water, Bernanke, the gold, the silver. You can have the bucket of rotten vomit, okay? Because it's worse than rotten vomit. I mean, this is poison. This is cyanide. He's telling us a bucket of cyanide is good, and I'm saying, no, crystal clear mountain spring water. And then the media is like, well, you're a conspiracy theorist. You want mountain spring water instead of cyanide? Whoa, whoa, this guy's crazy. This guy's crazy. From 1913 until now, actually in 1913 till about 2009, or I guess October 2008, but almost 2009, 97%, Ron Paul's written reports on this, so is the Congressional Budget Office, as I mentioned, 97% of the dollar's value was lost, but it was done over 90 years plus. And so it wasn't as easy to notice. But, in 1913, you could walk in with a quarter, and you could go into a diner and get a 3-course meal, coffee, tea, a piece of pie, buy your buddy a cup of coffee, a quarter. By the 1960s, you could get the cup of coffee for the quarter. Now the cup of coffee is $2, if you're lucky. You see what's happening? And that's even with companies and businesses cutting back their profit and selling you the coffee at almost what it cost them. Because they got employees, they got government bureaucracy to pay for. The taxes are up, the bureaucracy's up, and their profit's less. And this is across the board. So the real free market and productivity, it shrinks while the false banker, parasite, government system just grows and grows. In fact, it was out in the news yesterday. Government jobs exploding in the federal government, not at the state level. Oh, that implosion's begun. And they'll implode the feds later, too. This is a gradual thing. But private sector jobs, massive layoffs in the last month, intensifying. In fact, since I got into this now, Jaron, will you pull up the article? It's up on InfoWars and Prison Planet. 1,000 pictures is worth one word by Jeff Clark at Big Gold. Because I want to show people who are watching on prisonplanet.tv. If you're a radio listener, go to Infowars.com, go to prisonplanet.com. It's there on the main page. And I'm going to read over this, then I'll get into our big top story that is one of the biggest stories in the country right now. 1,000 pictures is worth one word. And it goes on to say, in spite of constant headlines about debt and deficits, most Americans don't really believe the U.S. dollar will collapse. From knowledgeable investors who study the markets to those seemingly too busy to worry about such things, most dismiss the idea of dollar actually going to zero.